You got two main types of fluids in your body, right? You have the blood. The blood is like the kitchen, and you have the lymphatic system. The lymphatic system is like the garbage disposal, right? It could only hold but so much toxins and but so much waste inside your body. Once you get over like 90%, that's when you start having the mucus coming out your nose. That's when you start having, you know, the sinus infections. That's when you start to have the coughs and the colds and the mucus and congestion and the sore throat, swollen tonsils, swollen nose, swollen passages, because that lymphatic system needs to excrete that extra waste. You feel what I'm saying? So with Dr. Sebi, the way that he was able to start healing, he had to do a detox. And so he detoxed the body through fasting, through taking herbs that naturally cleanse the body, right? So you got your dandelion root, you got your burdock root, you got your milk thistle, you got your bitters, right? So these herbs naturally clean out the body, naturally boost the liver, and they clean everything out of you. You know what I'm saying? So that's the first step. So the first step is to clear out the body. And then the next step is to put alkaline, non-GMO, non-molecularly altered foods inside your body. So you only want to be putting foods that came out the ground, came from God. When your pH balance gets too acidic, the body starts to create mucus to balance out the pH balance inside. Dis-ease is just an excess of mucus inside of the body. And extra mucus in your lungs is bronchitis. Extra mucus in your joints is arthritis. Mucus in your brain is dementia. You feel what I'm saying? So it said, when does fasting ever become bad? And so the thing about fasting is we just were never taught to fast. Because if we were taught to fast, then more people would fast and less people would get sick, and the pharmacy industry wouldn't be able to thrive off of selling you a quick fix instead of selling you a cure, right? So fasting would be the cure and the pharmacy would be the quick fix. Naturally we fast, right? So you have in the morning, it's called break fast, right? That's when you break your fast. Your body has 3 different processes, right? You have ingestion, digestion, and excretion, right? So ingestion is when you're taking the food in, digestion is when you're processing the food, and excretion is when you're getting the food out your body. But we usually skip the excretion step. You're fasting, that's the excretion part, right? So as soon as you start ingesting, you immediately start digesting. As soon as the digestion process is over, that's when you start the excretion process. But we usually skip the excretion process and go straight back into digestion, and that's when the excess waste comes in. Fasting is the best thing that you could do for your body. And if you're used to eating all the time, then you got to teach your body how to fast, right? So you start with intermittent fasting, eating between a certain amount of time. Right, 3 o'clock right now, I'm having my first meal. I only eat between the hours of 12 and 7, right? And if I'm not digesting during that time, that's when I have the time to excrete. That's when I have the time to finish digesting and get that extra stuff out of my body. If you don't eat, what happens is instead of you digesting your food, you start to digest the waste, right? Everybody, they have what's called mucoid plaque, the plaque that surrounds the inside of your intestines. If you don't get a chance to excrete the waste when you're not digesting, then that plaque builds up. And so if you don't eat, then that's when you get a chance for that plaque to come out of your body. So if you do a fast, do a 1-day fast, you know, you'll see that there'll be a mucus lining at the top of the toilet and at the top of the water, and that's the plaque that's been around your intestines. You don't want to just jump into fasting if you're not used to fasting. Start with intermittent fasting. Start with taking longer breaks in between eating, right? And then try and do a fruit fast, right? Only eating fruit, because fruit takes 15 minutes to digest. Vegetables take about 45 minutes to digest. Beans may take about 45 minutes to digest. Nuts may take about 45 minutes to digest, right? Meat takes about 24 hours to digest, right? Red meat takes about 48 hours to digest. You feel what I'm saying? So eating a plant-based diet, eating a fruit-based diet, those are forms of fasting as well. And then you can go into a liquid diet as well, right? That's another form of fasting. As you know, Jesus fasted for 40 days, and Ramadan is coming up. People fast during Ramadan. It's also a spiritual thing, right? So if you're not digesting that food, then you have extra energy to use for other stuff. That extra energy you can use to have a connection with God, more space for spiritual energy to come into your body. We're not just physical bodies, right? We are physical, spiritual, and emotional bodies. We don't eat because we're hungry. We eat because we have an emotional attachment to food. So that emotional attachment to food is what creates cravings, irritability when you don't eat, and that's the spiritual part of it. That's the emotional and spiritual part of it. If you can abstain from eating for a certain amount of time, if you can abstain from eating certain foods that aren't good for you, now you're starting to do a spiritual fast, you feel what I'm saying? As well as emotional and physical fast. When does fasting become bad? Yeah, so I wouldn't worry. Rest in peace to Dick Gregory, right? I heard Dick Gregory say, asking people like, I don't know about fasting, I don't know if that's healthy. Don't ask about doing alcohol, ask about doing cocaine. You feel what I'm saying? You don't ask about smoking weed. You feel what I'm saying? You don't even think about that. But when it comes to your health, you start to have questions. And I'm not talking to you specifically. You feel what I'm saying? I'm just talking in general. Like, this is something that's healthy for you. It's just interesting that the emotional body will start to take over the mind, you know, as soon as we start to talk about giving up things that are attached to us, you know, literally attached to us, right? And that's a whole nother thing about parasites, right? So, you know, fatty foods, sugary foods, processed foods, things that aren't necessarily good for you, bread, yeast, that's what the bacteria thrives on. Sometimes it's not you that's hungry, it's your bacteria that need to be fed, and the parasites that need to be fed.